What's up, friends? It's good to be back after a long time. I'm not going to make any excuses as to why I'm so late to be posting a new video on this channel, but who cares? I'm here, I'm back, and with a brand new list of awesome albums to check out. My name is Heavy Sleeper, and here are some awesome metal albums from January 2024. Let's go! So, I've picked my 10 favorite albums of the month, which I'm going to talk about in detail. But before I do that, there are a couple of others that I'd like to mention because I did listen to them and did quite enjoy them, and I think you might as well. Don't forget, this list is personal. This is just based on albums that I've heard, so if I've missed anything, then feel free to use the comments to let me know what awesome albums you think I should have listened to. It's going to go pretty quick for the first couple of albums until I get to my 10 favorites, because I don't want to make a massively long video like the best ofs. And finally, this is not going to be a countdown. This is not a ranked order, okay? This is not going to be a top 10 plus honorable mentions or anything. No. This is going to be some cool albums, then my 10 favorites, and in no particular order, okay? So, let's get cracking. So the first album I'd like to talk about, so these are the other albums that I'd like to mention before I get to my 10 favorites. First one is Saxon with Hellfire and Damnation. A band who was active since the 70s, still killing it in 2024. Okay, this is typical Saxon material. It's not now that they're going to change their formula, but who cares? It's fun, you know. I had a blast listening to this in my car, and considering the age that this band has, this sounds pretty flippin' energetic. Also, an album I enjoy blasting in my car was the new Lucifer album, Lucifer V. I actually haven't really checked out this band much in the past, and I'm starting to wonder why, because I actually really dig this album. It's a good piece of classic rock that really took me back to the roots of my music taste, and you know, it's gonna have those nice crunchy riffs that I like from some classic hard rock, and some great vocals too. Next band, also a band that has been around for a while, it's Sgàile with The Cosmic Race. Now, this band, although back then it was a much different lineup, released an album called Hypertrace back in 1988, and this album was an overlooked gem, and I don't understand why. It's super fun. Go listen to that Hypertrace album if you haven't, or otherwise listen to this new one, The Cosmic Race. It's a fun sci-fi themed heavy metal album. Next off, we have a one-man project called Sgàile with an album called Traverse the Bealach. The mood is supposed to be you like wandering in a post-apocalyptic world, which, to be honest, I can definitely see. This is one that I think you should add to your road trip playlist the next time you go on holiday or something. This album is really cool to listen to, you know, when you're driving, you see all the different landscapes pass by. It's quite a smooth album. It's a mixture of prog metal and post metal. It's got some soothing vocals. The riffs, generally speaking, the melodies and that are quite catchy, quite memorable. It's long songs. I really digged it, so don't miss out on this one if you haven't heard it. Vitriol with Suffer and Become. This is pure unrelenting insanity. This is cattle decapitation on steroids, and cattle decapitation are already pretty flipping mad. But Vitriol have taken that level of intensity and just nudged it up a little bit, and yet still managed to make an album that has a lot of details throughout its gigantic wall of noise. So that's what I found quite interesting about this one. Now, I will admit, I don't think I'll be listening to this album much in the future, but damn, it is quite impressive nonetheless. You see that skeleton on the cover, that's going to be you by the end of this album. You're just going to be incinerated until you are a walking pile of bones. And now, people, let's get to my 10 favorites of January 2024. And the first album is Ryujin with their self-titled album. Have a listen. So this band was formerly known as Sgàile. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. They play a sort of mixture of folk metal and power metal, quite similar to Ensiferum, except it's Japanese. So you're going to have some influences of Asian folk in there, and it all sounds phenomenal. The album kicks off with a blistering opening track, but then sort of adds progressively some clean vocals until you start to actually get some ballad kind of tracks. So among the ballads we have Saigo no Hoshi and the Rainbow Song, with Matthew Heafy guesting on some songs on the album as well. He guests on the Rainbow Song. Generally speaking, you're gonna have a lot of catchiness within the riffs or within the choruses. Overall, it's very energetic, it's a lot of fun, it's quite adventurous, and also quite epic. It's samurai metal, man. I really enjoyed some tracks like Dragonfly 3, Ryujin and Fujin, and Kunikub. These tracks generally start by pummeling you with some really energetic power mellow death metal, and then afterwards they transcend into some really hooky choruses. The band sometimes sings in English and Japanese. I definitely recommend that you check this out, especially if you like either power metal or folk metal. And finally, I gotta mention the awesome title track that is named after the band. It's a track called Ryujin, plain and simple. And wow, that track is magnificent. Next album is Sea of Consciousness with their self-titled debut album. That's right, we have a debut right here in the 10 best of the month. And Sea of Consciousness are sort of a weird mix between mellow death, black metal and thrash metal at times. The vocalist has quite a range of different styles. She basically fluctuates between the aggressive mellow death growls that you are used to hearing, and then she's gonna do some different kinds of singing. Sometimes the singing can be quite soft, sometimes it can be a bit grittier. There is also a progressive element in this album. You'll especially hear that in tracks like, the title track, Sea of Consciousness, which is a great opener, but then also Misconception, which lasts 8 minutes and which goes through a couple of different changes. And then they also showcase their softer side on Reflections, or even the beginning of Solitudo. And then later on, hit you again with the mellow death. Now, all the different styles in this album are things that you've heard before, but never mixed in that way. This is a band that sure has a personality behind them, and is definitely trying to do things different than your average underground metal band. And that's why I had to mention this album. I found it thanks to the YouTuber Made Out of Metal. Thank you, man. Merci beaucoup. And yeah, I think that you guys are going to enjoy this because it's very interesting, it's quite unique. And they've got a lot of guts, I must say, to pull off something like this on their first album. I'm very interested to see what this band can pull off in the future. Dark Oath, Ages of Man. So basically imagine a melodic death metal album getting mixed up with the soundtrack from one of your favorite epic video games or films or something. There's some massive orchestrations on this album, really elevating the overall sound to another high level of epicness. And it's like that on every single song. Some people might think that the orchestrations drown the rest of the band, which is kind of true, but not really, because the riffs are still quite audible, in my opinion. The drums is still there, still pummeling and commanding the entire compositions, and the vocals, ferocious mellow death growls. Generally speaking, the songs range from atmospheres where it sounds like you're exploring really massive landscapes in an epic tale or something, and on a lot of tracks you can really imagine an epic battle going on, or otherwise more like a triumphant battle. You know, it's like you are the hero and you are fighting your way through a battlefield, but you are winning. This album sounds triumphant and sounds powerful, and I really enjoyed listening to this while walking in my beautiful countryside home, just looking at the big massive landscapes and just imagining the scenes going on in my head. A few standout tracks for me were A New King, Life of Sorrow and Pain, and Raging Waters, but every track in here is super epic and an absolute blast to listen to. Lord Dying, Clandestine, Transcendence. we have some sludge metal. This is a first for this channel. In this album, it is going to go through so many different routes. This is an album that is transcending you into another state. And you see the evolution of the music and the tale that it's telling throughout. It's going to kick off with some harsh vocals, you got some heavy riffs. Then from the third track, it's going to start to include some clean vocals, but it's always a bit weird, you know. Final push into the song is another awesome, groovy, sludge, stoner, whatever you want to call it, metal song. And it just sounds wicked. The riffs just make you want to headbang. The drums is always pummeling. It's got a bit of an old school feel, you know, the album. The song Dancing on the Emptiness comes, and the album takes a very proggy turn on this moment. It's an 8-minute track, which is absolutely magnificent, with a soaring chorus. The track Breaking the Clouds has a weird feeling where it sounds like you've woken up, but you're still in a dream. So you've basically woken up from a dream within a dream. And then as the album gets towards the end, you got an awesome finale with Swimming in the Absence and The Endless Road Home, which has a chorus which is going to get stuck in your head. Have a listen to that. Definitely one of my favorite sludge metal bands, if that is what you want to call them, because there's also a bit of a prog element in there, but the main sound comes from sludge metal, I think, with those, you know, crunchy riffs that they have. Now we have Malist of Scorched Earth. A one-man project, and this is an atmospheric black metal project, which is really well done considering it's just one guy. So you're going to have a pretty good balance of sinister black metal along with some really melodic and moody touches that just make you picture the landscape. That's what atmospheric black metal does, and that's what I like it to do, is to make me picture some landscapes, make me paint the picture of what the album is trying to tell. Again, really enjoyed listening to this when I went for a walk in the countryside among the big fields and just listening to the different songs unfold, from the massive opening track with its beautiful melodies up to the build-up of The Ship, and then Wind of Change Carry Me, which has an awesome melody to it that got stuck in my head. There's some shifts between some moments of aggression, like for instance on the track Rotting into Primal, and then Clad in Black and Gold comes and finishes off with a really smooth build-up. This is some atmospheric black metal done right, and I'm honestly surprised it's done by just one guy. Slift, Ilion. This band has exploded lately, and there is a reason why. It's because they play stoner rock to perfection. What makes a great stoner rock album for me is something that makes you feel like you're just out of your mind, completely tripping away, like you've swallowed some LSD, but without taking anything whatsoever. And man, the atmosphere on this album is incredibly dense. I can barely believe this is just 3 guys. Every song is this crazy atmosphere that slowly builds up into just total madness. As soon as I hear those riffs just unfolding into a massive soundscapes, and then the vocals just coming on top of that, shouting into the void, oh man, it just sounds magnificent. You get some tracks like Nim or Confluence, you know, it starts off with some very smooth stoner rock, and then as the song progresses, it's going to change. It's not a shift into a completely different atmosphere like we may have seen with some other bands on this list. This, on the other hand, is the same atmosphere that's evolving and transforming as you listen to it. One track that I particularly love on this album is Weaver's Weft, which starts off with a very mysterious sort of chanting at the beginning, and then, as you'd expect, it evolves into a massive just ball of noise that is building itself. It's like you're being slowly transported into space by, you know, a beam from an alien spaceship. This band, they managed to create an album that's, you know, nearly 80 minutes long, but I'm telling you, it is worth every single minute. You do not get bored in this album. It's unbelievable. Next off is Caligula's Horse with Charcoal Grace. I think the music pretty much speaks for itself. Caligula's Horse, they have been one of the finest progressive metal bands making waves with their past albums, but here they're making even more waves, bringing in more intensity and songs that evolve even more. Like, take for example the beginning track or the ending track, which are super catchy and super memorable. But what about that 4-part title track, which just goes bonkers? Oh my goodness. The vocals are smooth, the riffs as well. It's a smooth album, but it manages to be intense without, you know, doing the craziness that extreme metal does. Instead, this one is going to take you through different emotions that you can't quite explain. And it's also quite diverse. I mean, take for example the transition from Sails to Storm Chaser. You go from a track that's really smooth, like you're floating on a little boat, and then all of a sudden, BAM! The storm happens, the waves just wash you away. When Storm Chaser comes on, I had chills. Wow! Caligula's Horse takes you on an absolute voyage with this album, and what I like is how it explores a very vast amount of emotions, but it leaves you with a very hopeful note, with the track Mute being so wonderful. Exocrine, legend. This is a monstrous tech death band that have been releasing super album after super album. They're generally short, but they're effective. This, I guess, is probably the closest thing that you get to Archspire. The drumming is completely insane. It's quite fast, but also very precise. The riffs are either gritty and just coming into a full pack of intensity to crush you, or sometimes going into some really melodic leads to make the album sound all the more epic. This album basically sounds like you are challenging a massive monster. This is what I love about this sort of like bombastic tech death. It really feels like you are a hero with superpowers and you're about to fight a monster. I mean, there's a monster on nearly every album covered by this band. So, hey, I guess maybe that's kind of what it is, right? I saw this band again, I think all the way back in 2022, just as they were about to release their last album, The Hybrid Suns. Here's a little snippet of that if you want to check it out. The tracks The Oath and By the Light of the Pyre are absolutely phenomenal. By the Light of the Pyre with that shreddy riff that comes in. Woo hoo hoo. Man, I just get the chills every time I hear that, and my head goes swinging literally like this. This is my body, this is my head. Bang, bang, bang. Every time I hear that song, yeah, this is tech death that's done right. It's concise and it's effective and it's great. I see those towers. I see dark towers. Madder Mortem, Old Eyes, New Heart. This was my introduction to this band, and I don't really understand why, because they're pretty damn cool and they seem to have been around for a while. So how would I describe this? It's quite a mix, as a lot of these albums are. It's they're classified as avant-garde metal, but this has some elements of classic rock. At one point, you'll be listening to quite a smooth song. Take for example tracks like On Guard or Here and Now, and then suddenly the next track will just be completely insane. For instance, Master Tongue, which is a crazy song, or otherwise you have the track Towers, which is super cool, super dynamic. Have a listen to this. And then finally, tracks like Unity and Things I'll Never Do. They're hype songs with some elements of classic rock with that intensity of metal building up throughout. And whoa, man, that's what I love about these tracks. They have some build-ups, and the riffs, man, the riffs are tasty. The vocals are really interesting. Sometimes going from really smooth singing to very theatrical, sort of shouting almost at times. But this is a band who know what they're doing, and they have a personality. Overall, Old Eyes, New Heart is a beautiful piece of music, full of emotion and full of really dynamic, interesting songwriting, and then delivers a massive lot of intensity and theatrics with the vocals and everything. It's cool. Okay, last but not least on this list, we have Manticora with Mycelium. This band is so underrated. These guys have been killing it for over 20 years, and they are still killing it in 2024. This sometimes sounds like a death metal album, but with clean vocals, and goes to show that you don't need to growl in order to sound extreme, because this band is intense. And it's not just the vocals, the clean vocals, but this guy really has a lot of intensity when he sings, and just has sometimes this overall like dreadful feel to it, but I love it, man. It's so cool. Then the riffs, man, the drums are just hard, man. The drums are hard and pummeling, and this ranges from complete craziness, like take for example the track Demon Day, which just goes bonkers. But then you also have some tracks which are gonna hit you with some insane vocals, and afterwards they'll get a little bit more melodic and transcend into a really catchy chorus. Take for example Golem Sapiens, or Beast of the Fall, or even the title track Mycelium. And then towards the end, you get a super finale with Dia de los Muertos, which just goes to show why Manticora are an amazing band. This whole album, with every song, it hits hard, and even the ballad, which is called Angel of the Spring, is super captivating and just downright beautiful. And it goes to show that this band can also create something that's more soothing, more magical. So overall, January has been a really interesting start to this year. Probably one of the best openings we've ever had, I would say. I think that no matter what style of metal you're into, I think you would have found a lot to enjoy from this beginning of the year. And wait till we get to February for the next episode. Keep an eye out on that. So as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the February list. Thank you, friends. Take care.